Listeners beware, prepare for an extra scare. Howdy folks, welcome to Nightmare on Fear Street. I am your host Zack, and welcome to the very first bonus episode of Nightmare on Fear Street. Now, how these episodes are going to work is they're not going to be particularly a movie review. We might review maybe a short story or two that aren't long enough, to keep interest for a whole 45-minute episode. These are just fun little episodes that talk about random aspects from R.L. Stine, such as movies, theme park rides, even audio commentaries. Yeah, we're going to start doing audio commentaries for Goosebumps episodes. We're going to be having one relatively soon, so prepare for that. I'm excited to start doing this because it's a nice change of pace and adds a little more flavor. I'm going to set the mood for you guys. You're in a dark theater. You have the popcorn in your hands, a $8 soda. You sit down and you start watching a movie. But as you sit down, you notice something. You notice the seats aren't quite the way they should feel. They feel more stiff. As the movie starts going on, there's a huge explosion on the screen. All of a sudden, your seat shake, and you're like, what's going on? Then all of a sudden, during the movie, a pipe bursts, and you get sprayed with water. Like, whoa, what's going on here? There's lights, sounds, flashing effects, your room's shaking. It's one of the coolest experiences. I'm talking about a 4D movie. Now, what makes a 4D movie a 4D movie compared to a 3D movie? Now, a 3D movie is just a movie that basically jumps out at you. You can see things in a third dimension. You have to wear the stupid special glasses. For me, a person wearing glasses all the time, it is a nightmare. James Cameron wants to eliminate that, so if you could do that, I will be happy. Now, a 4D movie is a 3D movie with extra gimmicks and effects, such as shaking seats, water, air jets that make something like crawling on your feet, and many more awesome things. There's so many examples. I love 4D movies. It's Tough to Be a Bug at the Bugs Land Theater, Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, that doesn't exist anymore, Shrek 4D, and even Captain EO to an extent. There's so many ideas for 4D movies. There actually even aren't that new of an idea. They've been around since the 50s. William Castle did the thing where he would do House on the Haunted Hill, where he'd have a skeleton hanging and people would be scare actors, as well as there was this one movie called The Tingler that he did, where there was a creature that hooked onto your spine and the only way to get it off you was to scream. And as that's happening, there's actually vibrating seats behind you to make it simulate that you are being attacked by the Tingler. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because Goosebumps had a 4D movie. Of course they did. R.L. Stine produced a Goosebumps 4D ride for SeaWorld. It is one of the weirdest things. Let me just put this hodgepodge. I'm going to read you the weirdest things about this. We have Lea Tompson, Back to the Future. Christopher Lloyd, Back to the Future. We get Joe Dante, the guy that made Gremlins, Toy Soldiers, and so many of my other favorite movies directing this. You have people that are now famous now. You have really cheesy effects. You got 3D effects. You got water spraying at you. And this, my friends, is R.L. Stine's Haunted Lighthouse. This movie premiered in SeaWorld San Diego in about 2003 and quickly began to spread around all the Busch Garden parks. And it is a trip because it's one of those things that I was old enough about 2005 when I went to SeaWorld San Diego, and I totally forgot that this thing existed. I always thought I misremembered it. I thought it was the Goosebumps episode, The Headless Ghost, but it wasn't quite right. So when I friended the show, my friend Jeff Tucker, he actually bought me a bunch of Goosebumps books, and in all of the books that he got me, he actually got me the book version of The Haunted Lighthouse, and I never knew what this was, except that it said based on the thrilling 4D attraction at SeaWorld and Busch Gardens. So the second I opened this up and was looking through the photos, I noticed that there's a huge amount of photos of, I was like, wait, is that Lea Tompson from Back to the Future? Is that Christopher Lloyd? And it made me look and research, because it's how did I not know there was this Back to the Future reunion? And out of all the people, because my friend Jeff is a huge Back to the Future fan, and he actually just released this book about his experience with Back to the Future called Friend in Time. You can get that on Amazon. He would, of course, give me something that I'm surprised. I'm not even sure if he knew about, because he didn't say anything about it when he handed me these books. This movie was just a trip. I was able to find it online. Unfortunately, the ride doesn't exist in San Diego. It exists at some of the other parks, but Not really. It's really outdated at this point. Though it is, I couldn't find. The sad thing is I couldn't find much information about this ride. There wasn't a budget besides Joe Dante. It obviously cost more than $1 million to make, and it is green screen. It is special effects. It is early 2000s. It is like Spy Kids 3 Game Over type of graphics, and it feels like Spy Kids 3 game. It's a trip, man. I'm just gonna read you some of the cast, and it is one of the weirdest casts. So we get Lea Tompson, Sara Paxton, Christopher Lloyd, Michael McKean, and you get again Joe Dante. It's almost like the theme park version of the Thriller music video with like John Landis directing, with Michael Jackson and Vincent Price doing the narration. It is one of the weirdest things. I guess I could explain the story to this because it just gets crazier from here, guys. So the story opens up with these old like animations of paintings, like old type sea paintings. You would see like an I Spy of like the ship in the storm, and Christopher Lloyd is narrating, and he has this really, really awful, like he's trying to talk like a pirate, and it's really bad. And he's explaining how in the past there was this family that was on their ship and they got stuck in the rocks, and he told the kids to go onto the island as they tried to hook the ship from these rocks. And as that happens, the parents are basically murdered and get sucked to sea. The kids look in shock as a riptide hits them, and they also die, but now they inhabit this island, which had, for some reason, already had a lighthouse that didn't have a light in it, so the person wasn't doing their job. Oh, God, that's kind of sad. But he sets up this thing. Christopher Lloyd sets up, the premise of the show. And then it cuts to the future where we have Mike and Ashley, who are these two like radical early 2000s kids, which when I first saw the video, again, I was like, wait, that person looks familiar. So the girl is played by Sara Paxton, who she's interesting because she's in one of my favorite horror movies. She's actually the main star. She's in The Innkeeper. She plays Clara. Though, if I showed this to my sister, she'd be like, oh, wait, that's Aquamarine from the movie Aquamarine, where she plays a mermaid. So we have like this weird parallels of them going to like a creepy old seaside hotel and fish things. So it gets weirder and weirder from down here. So Christopher Lloyd explains the story, and then it cuts to the next day. And it turns out that Christopher Lloyd basically owns a seaside like knick-knack shop where his name is literally Captain Jack. Again, Pirates of the Caribbean had come out a year or two prior, so I mean, actually, it just came out, I would imagine. So I don't know, it's just weird. I guess every captain's named Captain Jack, and he's like, oh, I need to run an errand, as Christopher Lloyd does. He's probably running off to get his paycheck. And the kids are like, this is spooky scary, and we're so bored. Our house doesn't have a TV in it because we're renting it for the summer. And all of a sudden, this boy comes. He's like, oh, hey, guys, I'm Edgar, and I heard you guys talking about the ghosts in the lighthouse. I know them. They're like, I see them every night. And the kids, like Ashley and Mike, are like, yeah, that sounds perfectly reasonable. Let's go steal a boat and go over to the creepy lighthouse because it takes a while to get there. So they start heading over there, and as that's happening, a storm's a brewing. And Christopher Lloyd comes back to discover that the kids are gone as he's like making like a ruckus, and he finds a note plastered onto the side of his knick-knack shop that basically says, yeah, we went with this guy named Edgar, again, a kid, on a boat, on a lighthouse, during a storm, and we should be back by dinner time. What? Okay, I guess this is Goosebumps. They're just begging to be murdered. So the kids end up going to the lighthouse, and they enter it, and it's like this weird, creepy, dilapidated, like a kid's horror movie, like a haunted, spooky house that hasn't been, it's like the Haunted Mansion with Eddie Murphy, that aesthetic. So they get inside and they notice there's a painting of a shark, and as the camera like leaves them and goes to a close-up, you notice the shark is getting closer, and then they notice in the background the shark is now swimming in the painting and jumps out, and if you're wearing your 3D glasses, it is now attacking you. So it's kind of spooky scary, and they just take it, yeah, they actually run away, and they somehow find a harpoon gun, which they hold the entire time. So it's really cool. I think it's really interesting. There's like weird like series of unfortunate events parallels to this. And there's Christopher Lloyd, who pretty much looks like Captain Sham. They have a harpoon gun and they have a sea shanty. It's a trip. So as that's happening, Christopher Lloyd is trying to get to this island, and it is raining, it is pouring, and not much happens besides he starts to hear singing. So we cut back to the lighthouse, and I guess Ashley and Mike are discovering that the Edgar doesn't seem as he appears. He's kind of creepy. And they start hearing singing and songs, and then they find out that, I guess, Edgar's sister, Annabelle. I kept thinking the Edgar Allan Poe and Annabelle the creepy doll, even though, it hasn't existed yet. That just is where my mind goes. She turns out that she's a ghost. And then, they don't put two and two together that Edgar's also a ghost until he basically pulls out his head and he pulls it to the camera. It's pretty much like putting your hand in front of your face and then taking it away quickly. I really wish this was a video podcast, but he's doing that. And it's really like a goofy effect. And the kids run off to the top of the lighthouse. And it is one of the stupidest things because no one goes to this lighthouse. So there should not be any reason to be ladders or stairs or anything, but Ashley ends up going to the top of the lighthouse. Edgar stays on the bottom because he falls off the stairs, and you don't really see how far he drops, but he hits the ground hard. And for a 12-year-old kid, that's just an inconvenience for him. He didn't break anything. That's good. Ashley gets to the top, and the two ghost children, it's almost like in Beetlejuice, they start floating up, and they're just messing with the kids. Come play with us. We just want you to be dead like us. So they get to the top of the lighthouse, and Ashley's look over there. The old there's nothing behind my shoulder thing, but they look, and for some reason there's a ghost ship, and the ghost ship has the parents. The parents are played by Michael McKean, who I just think of him as Mr. Green in Clue, and Lea Tompson from Back to the Future, because they had money for this. And they find out the curse of the ghost children can only be broken if they can be reunited with their family. So then Ashley decides that we're going to start this lighthouse so they can find their way back. So she's like, Mike, check if there's an old generator down there for some weird reason, because old generators just exist in dilapidated places. He starts starting it up, and as he starts it up, there's a bunch of rats coming. So if you were in your seats, there'd be air jets to simulate if rats were running across your legs. And that's really cool. And they somehow manage to get the lighthouse working. The ship comes to them. Christopher Lloyd shows up, and the ghost dad just looks at him, and he just goes, "Great Scott, you look terrible." And I just groaned in my computer chair just because that happened. They couldn't avoid that. I'm surprised it wasn't Lea Tompson saying it to Christopher Lloyd. Oh my God. So then the ghost children and the ghost family at this point decides to, thank you guys. Well, we're still dead, so we're going to sail around the world. Oh, by the way, there's some pirate booty. If you go past so-and-so, use your map quest, and they wink at Christopher Lloyd. Christopher Lloyd basically high-fives them, and they sail away. So then it cuts to most likely the next day. The creepy lighthouse has been renovated. It is now a Captain Jack's swordfish fishery that Christopher Lloyd is now taken over. He is now even more of a sham. It is this now 6-star restaurant he has made. As they come in, Ashley and Mike are yay, we're cool and stuff, because we're rad 90s kids. Now we won't be bored. And as that happening, the patrons start screaming, and they notice that the ghost family comes back to the haunted lighthouse and hey, we came to hang out, dinner reservations. And then it cuts to a scene where Christopher Lloyd and Lea Tompson, Michael McKean are sitting around a table talking, and Weird Al Yankovic comes in as a waiter and is you guys want the catfish surprise? Again, this is a joke for a bar, a priest or rabbi, and someone else just walks into a bar. And as that happens, Christopher Lloyd opens up the case for the catfish surprise, and Lea Tompson's why is it called catfish surprise? As a catfish comes out and sprays water on the audience. And then it gets weirder, because then everyone starts dancing. Yes, this literally happens. It is one of the weirdest things. Everyone starts breakdancing, and the last line of this thing is talking about, would you like any catfish surprise from Christopher Lloyd? And the ghost's unfortunately, it goes right through us. And Christopher Lloyd's that's okay, food just goes right through me too. So the whole movie ends with a poop joke. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. So yeah, this was a very weird concept for a 4D ride. I'm ashamed that I did go to it once, but I would have loved to have gone to it now as an adult to see it. A lot of the effects were weird. There was a lot of like weird cheesy effects. There's a part where they're trying to scare the children and they have like these fish heads. They're almost like Shadow over Innsmouth, like Dagon, H.P. Lovecraft like monsters. It is like a weird trip. Though the movie was competently directed thanks to Joe Dante. This could have been a lot worse. It was more of like a high budget Goosebumps TV episode, and everything like in the 22 minutes that the show, because an average show should be about almost like half an hour, it's very well directed. You understand what's going on. There isn't much in the way of plot. It's just a fun little show to like entertain your kids when it's super hot and you don't know what's going on. I find that to be really fun. It's a fascinating look at early 2000s animation and how we've come a long way, especially with like 3D technology and how you can get away with that. Just imagine like Avatar, like 3D, and them doing gimmicks like throwing things in your face. So I find that 4D movies are the way to go, especially like I would consider Motion Simulator Rides kind of a 4D movie because you do have motion, so it's a 3D movie with motion. So it is a 4D movie such as Star Tours, and I find that perfectly acceptable. It's interesting that I found the book for this, just because it adds some more context, but very little just about where the parents were, because the parents don't show up in this whatsoever. As well as all the actors, they got involved in this, and I guess SeaWorld really went out, and they had so much fun with this. This looked like something that was a lot of fun, and that's what's great about it. These little gems that you find, especially with like theater and theme park entertainment and how it's interactive, and who would think that R.L. Stine would write a theme park ride? Because R.L. Stine has written no, he didn't write, but they have a Disney MGM, like live action horror stage show they did. They had so much weird stuff they did with R.L. Stine because he was bankable. And especially, like, I'm surprised they didn't have a Horrorland, like, section at any park, kind of like the Wizarding World. I'm surprised that never happened. Maybe they had designs for it. It wasn't in the cards, unfortunately. I kind of wish there was. We might do an episode talking about Horrorland and how it'd be awesome to have, like, a Horrorland a theme park. If you want to reach me, you can reach me at Suda41 on Twitter, or if you want to reach the show on Twitter, that will be at Night Fear Street. You can even email the show at nightmareandfearstreet@gmail.com. Leave us a message. Tell us, did you guys actually get a chance to experience this ride? I vaguely remember it, so it'd be interesting to get other people's perspectives, as well as if you have any other suggestions for topics you want us to cover. We'll even gladly listen and talk to you guys about viewer questions. It's a wonderful thing. Thanks, guys, for listening to another wonderful episode. If you want to find any of our other spooky content, you can go over to our web zone, ghoulishfancies.com. I'm Zack, and stay spooky. Now, if you need me, I'm going to go break dance in space. Bye.
But you two... Oh, great Scott, man. You look like a ghost.